Well, hello. This is another edition of Shoot Conversations with Chris Hero. It's my pleasure to bring to you the man formerly known as Bronson Reed, formerly known as J-Rock. Yeah. This is formerly Jonah Rock, because I believe right now you are simply known as Jonah.
That's correct. And all capitals.
All caps.
Yeah, you
like,
got it.
Like Shima.
Yeah,
or
Shima,
like Taka.
Kenta.
Kenta, of course.
For me, MF Doom.
Yeah.
All caps.
We just need to get you a little mask. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
I think we've always enjoyed conversing. There's a lot of parts of our career that should have intersected but didn't intersect, but we still had those commonalities.
Yeah.
Whether it's Japan or PWG or, joining each other at NXT.
Yep.
I did my research. I'm ready to dig in real deep. I've got some deep cuts for you.
Okay. I'm nervous and excited.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. So let's talk pre-wrestling.
Yes.
What was your family life like growing up?
It was good. I was raised by a single mother until I was about 5 or 6, and my stepdad came into the fold. But I lived with my grandparents and 2 of my uncles as a real young kid, and that's sort of how I discovered wrestling, because they watched wrestling.
Yeah. Only child?
No, I had a sister once my stepdad came into the scene. Okay. So there's like 7 years separating us, but we're close. We never say
big brother.
Yeah, big protective brother. She doesn't really listen to me at all, though, so I try, though.
She's got to learn for herself, man.
Yeah.
Am I correct in thinking that you have some Samoan heritage?
That's correct, yeah. So my shoot dad, if you will, is Samoan. Mm-hmm. I don't see him or his side of the family.
Yeah.
But that's where I obviously get my good looks.
Yeah. And what part of Australia did you grow up in?
South Australia.
South Australia.
Adelaide, South Australia, same place where Rhea Ripley is from as well.
Yeah. Fun. So what kind of sports did you find yourself enjoying, or what kind of interest did you have growing up?
Yeah, obviously aside from professional wrestling, I was very wrestling mad kid.
Yeah.
That's all I really cared about. Apart from that, I used to draw a lot. I was big into cartoons and stuff like that. Sport-wise, I played basketball in high school.
Yeah.
And I played rugby in high school. So I wasn't the best at either, but I gave it a good shot.
Yeah. Oh, man, I'd hate to see you across the rugby field.
Surprisingly, there were some other Islander kids that were just as terrifying, if not more terrifying.
Yeah. Was there... What kind of dynamic did you notice growing up in Australia with some Samoan heritage? Is there any kind of division that you noticed growing up?
For me, not so much. Like the town where I'm from, like Adelaide, it was a rarity. In my school, there was me and one other kid that was from New Zealand, so he wasn't even Samoan. But we were the only sort of Islander kids. Yeah. Whereas in Sydney and Queensland, there's big divisions, almost like Samoan gangs, the Australians, then the Lebanese, and more division. Whereas Adelaide was such a melting pot of all cultures which was great. And growing up, my high school schooling, it was just a bit of everyone. Yeah, which was good.
Yeah. How did you start to find and enjoy hip hop music?
Again, I feel so my uncle used to listen to heavy metal, and so that's what I sort of got onto as a young kid, surprisingly. And then when I was about 9 or 10, one of my cousins was playing a Beastie Boys album. Yeah. And I distinctly remember hearing it and being like, what is this music? Yeah. And obviously Intergalactic was on there, and I was like, what the hell is this stuff? And then from there I was sort of hooked. Yeah. And then once I was 12, 13, I was buying my own CDs and stuff.
Yeah, awesome, man. What kind of stuff did you enjoy most?
For me, that time, it was stuff like DMX was very popular. Obviously, you're Tupac, Notorious B.I.G., the go-tos of hip-hop. And that's sort of what started me with listening to hip-hop. And then I started digging deeper when I was about 15. I discovered Big L and more underground. I mean, not that he was underground, but I guess for Australia.
Not mainstream.
Yeah, he wasn't mainstream, And that's when I started, discovering underground hip-hop and listening to more of that stuff and more for the art of hip-hop, I guess.
see stuff on MTV, and then you're like, oh man, there's this thing on BET called Rap City.
Yeah.
They just play all these videos. You'd go to the grocery store and you'd get like a Source magazine. I don't know if you guys had those.
I used to get Source magazine, and then later on as a teenager, Double XL as well.
Yeah, Double XL.
But Source was the OG one that I would get.
Yep. There was, Vibe magazine had a little bit. There was Rap Pages was another one. Yep. But you'd find, just all these. There'd be advertisements, but there'd be interviews, and then you'd go into like the CD store, and you'd be like, oh my god,
I need to find what I can.
Yeah, and then every now and again,
different.
you would just see a CD, and you would just see the cover art, and be like, never heard of the guy whatsoever. You're just like, pick it up, and that introduced me to so much.
I know at the time as well, obviously illegal, but all my friends burnt CDs and stuff, so I was able to get so many different things from friends that would come over to my house. I had the computer with the two burners, and I burned discs as well. Obviously, what were the things like LimeWire and stuff?
Yeah, LimeWire. It was Napster, and then all the. There was WinMX, Kazaa.
All those places. And then I got onto some hip-hop forums as well that would have underground hip-hop and stuff, and people would put up raw files of albums.
Yeah.
It's BX was the place I used to go to.
Yeah, hell yeah. Man, but not to completely derail this into a different direction, but I thought it might be kind of fun for me to ask you, if you got to have a Rushmore, you got to have 4. What are your 4 favorite rappers or hip hop artists, whatever you prefer? Do you have a 4 that come to mind? I have my 4. I can go first if you would like.
Yeah. What are you?
All right. So my favorite of all time, even though it's been a tumultuous 6, 7, 8 years, is Kanye West.
Okay.
Right.
Incredible, right?
Yeah. His first 5, 6 albums.
Yeah.
It's my favorite, right?
I love Donda.
Yeah.
I thought it's an incredible album. I don't know who I was speaking to this. Not you, no. I was speaking to someone here before about Donda, and I said the first time I listened to it, the first half, I was a bit like, Then I listened to it again and again, and it's like, oh, okay,
yeah,
it's
there's a lot of good stuff on there. So I got Kanye, I've got Notorious B.I.G.
He's in mine for sure.
And I, not that I don't love Tupac, that's always the 2 that you go through. But with Biggie, I feel like his is quality over quantity.
I agree.
Because his, Ready to Die and Life After Death are just so dense and so good with so many songs.
I think he has the best flow in hip hop ever as well.
Man, that voice.
You can't beat it.
Absolutely. So you got Kanye, you got Biggie. I've got Andre 3000 on there.
Incredible.
Because I love Outkast as a group, but I give, just for me, there is something about his flair that puts him just a tad over Big Boy, even though Big Boy lyrically is incredible. And then my 4th is Kendrick Lamar.
I love Kendrick. I always try to do a Mount Rushmore of my absolute favorites, and then the newer breed.
Yeah, so
what I would consider Kendrick.
Yep, because if I used to do that, I'd kind of have Jay-Z on there.
Yeah.
I'd have Outkast as a group on there, and then for a while it was like. Lupe Fiasco. Lupe is going to be on there. Childish Gambino. There's really something special about him. There's this guy Yellow Wolf. I love.
Yellow Wolf. Yeah.
But if I have to condense it to that, it's Kanye, it's Biggie, it's Andre 3000, and Kendrick Lamar. Okay. So who you got?
Well, my Mount Rushmore, I think if I looked at what I actually listen to the most, Kanye would be in there, but I wouldn't put him in my Mount Rushmore.
Fair enough.
My Mount Rushmore would be 3 of the bigs. So Notorious B.I.G., Big L, Big Pun.
Ooh, okay.
And then the 4th, Wu-Tang as a whole.
Oh, okay.
Because I listened to Enter the 36 Chambers over and over as a teenager. Too much. But till this day, I can still listen to it.
Do you have a favorite solo album from Wu-Tang? Because I have an answer for this too.
Okay. See, that's hard for me because I love Method Man's solo stuff. I love Ghostface solo stuff, and I love Raekwon's solo stuff as well. It's hard. It's hard.
So mine is Liquid Swords by the GZA. That is and a hair under that is ODB's Return to the 36 Chamber.
Actually,
so that's my
I'd
1A,
probably say that. I'd probably say ODB.
God, it's so
because it's just so good. Yeah, that whole album is
so
good.
unorthodox and
man,
you put it down now for people.
About him.
Yeah.
But I also tried to do this recently. I was talking to my wife, who's a fan of hip hop.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to try and rank the Wu-Tang members and put it online. And then I couldn't do it because I was like, no, this guy should be above this guy. And then, like, for different reasons.
You need to go to, like, tiermaker.com and upload some thumbnails of them and, you know, S tier, A tier. Okay, back to this. So, from what I gather, one of your first memories in life is watching the TV. You got a big cage match, and it's Hulk Hogan and King Kong Bundy.
Correct,
right?
Yeah.
So aside from that initial image of pro wrestling, when do you remember following wrestling regularly? Are there some guys that stand out?
Yeah, I mean that was the first image for sure, and like I always say this in every interview, like I could just distinctively remember watching that match. I don't know if it was just because Hogan was Hogan, King Kong Bundy was such a big figure, or
big
the
blue cage.
Yeah, something about it stood out in my head.
Yeah.
But I remember I used to go to the local video store, which was probably Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And I'd rent WrestleMania 1 over and over and over. Even though I'd see it like whenever I'd go in there, and like my uncle would be like, "You've seen this so many times, get a different one." But something about that cover with Hogan and Mr. T, even if I didn't watch it, I was like, "Oh, I just want to have this at home." Like, so I think I was a big Hogan fan to begin with, and then from there, because I grew up in the 90s, it was like Shawn and Brett, and then I was watching all WWF tapes.
Yeah,
that's all I watched as a younger kid. Until about 1997, when I would have been like 9 years old, we got Nitro.
Okay.
And then that changed everything. I was a huge Sting fan.
Yeah.
And NWO and watching all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And then I've always been regular since WCW, Raw, all that stuff onwards.
Were you Shawn or Brett?
I was a Brett guy as a kid, but now I guess I'm a Shawn guy.
Yeah, man, I loved Brett. I loved Heart Foundation.
Yeah,
I had that tank top that came out. You know,
something about the pink and black as well.
Yeah, the pink and black.
Cool.
I mean, Anvil was cool too, but there was just something about Brett that I really liked.
The music, the way the music would hit. And just the people, the reaction, he'd come out in the jacket, the glasses. As a kid, I was like, I wish he would give me those glasses.
Yeah. Jim Johnston, man, brilliant.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah. So how did you find out about local wrestling?
Okay, so I went to a local wrestling show when I was about 10 years old. By accident, my stepdad was given a flyer. Mm-hmm. And obviously he knew I was watching Nitro and Raw every week. And he's like, let's go check out this wrestling. It was called Wrestle Rage.
Okay. Yep, of course. Would become a big part of your life.
Yeah. And then I think like there was just local guys on there. And one Australian guy that had experience in America. His name was Johnny Parks. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of him.
No, I'm not familiar with the name.
Yeah, he was Live Wire Johnny Parks. And so his gimmick was, I've been to America. I'm the American wrestling guy. Light blonde hair and stuff like that. And so I remember seeing him and thinking like, this is like the Australian Shawn Michaels.
So would this have been around 95-ish or what year would have?
98.
Let's go 98.
98, yeah.
That was the year I debuted.
There you go. Well, there you go.
September 98.
Yeah, I was 10.
You were 10.
So
Cool.
But after that, so I did that one show in 98 and then didn't go to any other local shows until about 2003.
Yeah.
Because of Hartley Jackson, who ended up training me.
Yeah.
I saw a flyer with him on it. I went to the show.
Yeah.
And he was my favorite wrestler.
Yeah.
Because he used to do moonsaults and stuff. Like,
yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. I watched the little mini doc.
Okay,
the
cool.
MCW doc, and it had some great footage on there.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Great footage. So how was your family? Obviously they were supportive of you watching wrestling.
Yes.
But okay, so number one, what was it that clicked in your head that you're like, oh man, maybe I can do this?
I think it was going to local shows.
Yeah.
I went to, started going to local shows around 2003.
Yeah.
I would have been, at the time, 13.
Yeah.
And then by the time I was 15, after going for a couple of years, there was a kid by the name of Damian Slater who...
Yeah, I wrestled Damian Slater.
Yeah. He got much better later on, but he was only 15.
Yeah.
And so I saw him, I'm like, well, this guy's like almost maybe he was a year older than me.
Yeah.
And he's doing it like, I can do this. Mm-hmm. So then I asked my mum if I could do it. And she's like, no way. She's like, she loved wrestling, but she's like, you need to finish high school. Then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And I was already one of those kids that didn't pay attention in school. So she thought if I was to go to a wrestling school, there's no way I'm paying attention in school.
Yeah. So you started to train. You ended up, you graduated high school and you started going to the school to train.
Yeah, straight away.
So Hartley was the teacher.
That's correct.
Did he own the school or was he just? Yeah, it was his.
It was his. So he had just been to the LA dojo, trained with obviously Inoki and all those guys there.
I believe there's a group photo.
There is, yeah.
Claudio and I went and we did one show for the LA dojo. When we would come in for PWG, sometimes we would train in that venue.
Yep.
With Durango Kid or whoever.
Yep.
And then there was one time we were there an extra day, so we worked that Sunday, and I think it was TJP and Ricky Reyes, or maybe it was TJP and Rocky. Maybe it's TJP and Rocky against us in like the opening of this, half lucha, half local LA guy show.
Yeah.
But there's like a group photo of all of us, and I didn't know until years later. He's like, "Hey, that's me."
Yeah.
Like, you had hair.
Yeah, he did.
Well, I mean, kind of.
It was sort of.
Yeah. But hey,
it went like this. His hair.
Yes. Yeah. He made the right call eventually.
Yeah.
I had a partner that made the right call eventually too. So, tell me about training right away, man. How was it?
It was like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life because Hartley was a hard ass and he very much wanted to replicate what they did in Japan in Australia. Mm-hmm. So no one had ever done training schools like that in Australia before, where you have a young boy system. We'd go out to the ring and watch the matches and stuff like that. Yeah. Every training would start with squats and push-ups. And I wasn't even allowed to get in the ring to do rolls until I was able to complete 50 push-ups on my own. Yeah. And I couldn't do a push-up to save my life. Yeah. So very hard, but in the end rewarding. And then years later when I actually did get to go to Japan, it prepared me for all that stuff.
Yeah. Who was it that broke Hartley in? Who did he originally train with?
Cole Devani. So he was an old school wrestler. He wrestled like in the Australian scene during the 70s and early 80s. And the early 80s is where it got taken off of television. And he also did like the carnivals, like hooking stuff, where he would, challenge someone and then submit them to shoot in the ring. So he was like, I remember Hartley Jackson and his close friend, who's a wrestler by the name of Havoc, were doing backyard wrestling. This would have been like 97, 98. Yeah. And then somehow they found out about Cole and that he lived in the same town, and they just asked him, "Would you train us?" And he did, and it started a whole wrestling school and promotions and everything.
Changed the landscape of Australian wrestling.
Yeah, 100%.
So your wife, Paige,
yes,
you guys met in high school?
That's correct, yeah.
And what were her thoughts on this crazy wrestling thing?
I remember when I first started going out with her, I didn't really mention it. Even though we were super young, we started going out with each other when we were like 13, so we've been together forever. Yeah. But I was like, Attitude Era, like 98, 99, wrestling was the cool thing at school. Yeah. I would go to school and everyone would be in NWO shirts or Stone Cold shirts, and I would be like, "Did you watch Raw?" And they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Like they did, like it was just a cool thing to
Casuals.
have. Casual wrestling fans. Whereas like by that time, 2002, 2003,
you're like, I got a Nation of Domination.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, guys, this is the Headbangers. Right.
I would have had my local indie shirt. For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, by that time it wasn't as cool anymore. Like even though to me it was cool, I was like, so I didn't mention it. And then after about a year, she came to my house for the first time, and I had like a bunch of DVDs, VHSs, figures and stuff. And I'm like, I'm a huge wrestling fan. Yeah. And then from there, she became more of a fan because I was obviously watching it all the time through high school. And then she always supported me in my career as well. Yeah,
she was very helpful to you in your initial training, I believe.
Yes, she actually paid for me to be able to go to the tryout. I think the tryout was $300. Yeah. And I had no money. Yeah. And she had started like full-time work. Like after high school, I was trying to get into wrestling and whatever, and just had like, I worked at a pizza store. Yeah. Which didn't give me hardly any money. It was like nothing. Yeah. And then she got like a management job through Target. Yeah. And so she's like, "I'll pay for it." And I was like, "Okay, thank you." And then I guess all these years later, it sort of worked out.
I guess it worked out. Yeah.